Have a good battle, friend.
Now, let's talk about what Iksar has been talking about. So, four-stack queuing in Battlegrounds is now possible. You can also go do custom lobbies, which is why we're going to be doing an Angriest Chicken open tournament in Battlegrounds, because now we can. We couldn't do it before. But there's a lot of concern about four-stacking in Battlegrounds. Probably because some streamers have done it and shown how powerful it can be in coordinated groups. But right before we went live with this show, Iksar started replying to concerns on the BobsTavern subreddit. Not the Hearthstone subreddit, reddit.com/r/BobsTavern. If you're unaware of this subreddit, you should add it to your list, especially if you're in the Hearthstone Battlegrounds.
I did not know that there was a Battleground subreddit. Like, I mean, of course there is, but it never really occurred to me. It was like I had my Hearthstone and my competitive Hearthstone subreddits, and those are where I go. I don't know why I didn't realize that there was a Battleground specific one, but there is. So if you're like me, the link's in our show notes. Go add that to your Reddits.
Yes. Yes.
Garrett, he said more. Should I add to the notes? He said more things.
Sure, unless you want to like summarize it quickly. So one of the biggest threads over there right now is titled "How Critical is the 4-person group?" And there's been a lot of discussion happening in this thread, and Iksar has been getting in there now and talking about it. And so this isn't as prepared as a lot of our information that we give to you on the show normally is. But
it's literally coming in hot, guys.
Yeah.
Like, this is happening as we're recording, so bear with us as we pull the information together.
Coming in so hot.
So hot.
Missed opportunity.
She said it.
She actually said it. I did not hit the button. And it wasn't Ragnaros, despite what you think. Anyway, so
they exclusively brought me in as a third-party witness to prove that Joss actually said it. Garrett, I can go now if you want. I'll stay. Yeah.
That was it. But Iksar started talking about concerns about group queue, and he said there are a bunch of potential solutions to solve group queue issues relating to competitive integrity. Don't fall asleep. There's interesting stuff here, I promise. He went on to say, once we have an accurate baseline of the average different skill sets of players get 4K, 6K, 10K, etc. by grouping together, we can adjust the matchmaking rating of those group players to create a fair experience. I talked about this last week. Here's the Storm does stuff like this. And I was surprised.
Stuff like does like put stuff in to get more data?
If I group together with, say we have I'm grouped with you and you're gold, you're grouped with me, I'm platinum, we're grouped with Kyle, he's diamond. It tries to find a matchup either of similarly placed players or what that system believes is close to a fair match. So maybe it can't find those three exactly. So it'll like add a bronze level player, but also a master's level player to try and counteract it.
To average it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm talking extremely broadly. There's so much more depth to the system, but that's kind of the basic gist of it. And that's what it sounds like Iksar is describing here. And, we talked about it last week. I was surprised that there was no talk of this leading up to being able to force stack. Because I'm not inherently against this. I think the idea of being able to group with your friends is cool. I think Battlegrounds is fun, and I have more fun when I play with my friends. It's cool for it to be a social experience, and Hearthstone really lacks in in-game social experiences. So, Anyway, it went on to say that whether you queue up into a game with group players or solo players, your expected rating adjustment end of game would be the same in this system that he's kind of detailing here. Does he get into any sort of timeline if this is something that they're thinking about doing soon?
As far as I understand, again, from a very, very quick skim, is the idea is that they need more data. Once they get more data and figure out how the lobbies work, then they're going to tweak the numbers behind the scenes so that you will not necessarily be negatively impacted by a 4-stack if it turns out from the data that the 4-stack is a competitive advantage. So that who you're playing against won't be just MMR, but also might include, if they do have data to back it up, will include some sort of modifier for like you being a solo against a 3-stack and a 2-stack or something like that. Like that will play into it as well. So this is still beta, I guess, is what all of this is kind of coming down to. And they need us to play, and they need us to give them information so that they can make good adjustments on the back end, and your MMR then won't necessarily suffer. So if I go in as a solo player and I go and queue into a 4-stack and they absolutely decimate me, I won't lose necessarily as many points as if I had been in a lobby of 8 solo players for coming in the same place, is what I take away from this post. In theory, at some sort of later time when the data supports a decision like that.
Yeah. I mean, another simple thing is just match. If we also mentioned last week, match 4 stacks with 4 stacks.
Well, and that's he put some potential solutions in the, like, in addition to MMR end of game rating calculations, also talked about things like disabling groups of that size past a certain MMR, or potentially, like you said, only pairing like grouped players together, making an entirely separate queue. All of these sort of things are solutions, but they want to make sure that they're not, I guess, punishing players too much for actually taking advantage of a system that's built into the game, right? Like, they don't want you to have a downside if you want to play with your friends, which, I mean, this, I feel like I'm having a Dead by Daylight conversation right now, because this happens all the time in Dead by Daylight, because you can queue as survivors where you have 4 survivors on voice comms against 1 killer, and people, it's much more powerful than playing when you're solo. So this is a conversation I've had in that community so many times.
Same in Heroes of the Storm, because they used to have separate queues and they merged them at a certain point.
Yeah. So it's like, do you balance around like players who are in a group together talking over voice and potentially manipulating a game? Or do you balance it around the solo players? If you balance it around group players, is that too much of a punishment to solo players? And this is where I think in Hearthstone specifically, the MMR number is really going to play a role, because I'm not going to mind going into a lobby with a 4-stack if my MMR isn't going to be impacted as much, you know? Like, if there's like a built-in buffer for the fact that I'm solo, then I feel like that will be okay. And again, this also comes from a Battlegrounds player that views it as more of like this is just a fun place I like to spend my time. I don't care if I win or lose. Like, I don't know why, but my Battlegrounds rating I've never taken it to heart as much as my constructed ladder level. I don't know why that is, but it's just like my own attitude towards the mode. So yeah, I mean, I have fun whether I win or I lose. So if my number doesn't go down as much because I'm solo, then that would be good. I would enjoy that, but it's not going to change how much I enjoy the mode.
And for people where Battlegrounds is their main mode and they do identify with their MMR, right, and the progress, and they're really looking to make a competitive push, I think it's totally understandable if anyone has concern about this new system impacting the competitive integrity of the mode. It's totally reasonable to be concerned about it. At the same time, been out for 29, 30 hours. Give it a minute. Give the devs a minute. And there's enough upside here for people that aren't necessarily playing competitively, that removing it completely and just rolling back the patch and saying we're not going to do this, I think we can confidently say would be a mistake. But there's also definitely room for improvement as to how it impacts the competitive scene, which is what the devs are saying here. It's what Iksar is saying. And there's been think about the amount of communication we've gotten already within the past 24 hours. If you're not following Cora's Twitter account, that is now officially Blizzard Twitter. That is Hearthstone Twitter. If you want to know what's happening in the game, she's telling people not to pick Micro Mummies because it'll break the game. She's talking about hot fixes. She's talking about other bugs. And she just tweeted here, and I'm going to read this if it's okay with Bossman over there. Yes.
Go for it.
Yes. Cora made this tweet. Games are supposed to be fun. If the game isn't fun, we will fix whatever is making it not fun. This isn't actually my job. I just know I would want this communication if I were on the other side of things. Listeners, I strongly recommend, first of all, follow songbird_HS on Twitter if you want up-to-date news. And second, if you appreciate the communication coming from the development team lately as much as I do, as much as we do, a word of thanks, a word of appreciation goes a really long way in a profession that is usually either invisible or burning in effigy. It's usually either everything is fine and nothing bad is happening, or someone is yelling at you because your game is broken. It really can't be overstated how far Blizzard has come, how far Team 5 has come in such a short amount of time. Sen of Dragons less than a year ago. And think about what was going on before that. Think about Tombs of Terror for 2 straight months with nothing. And now we're getting tweets the same day and Reddit posts the day after. It's an incredible leap in player communication. It's really player friendly. They're looking to fix it. They're working on it. And concern is valid, but give it a minute and let them work on it and fix it. And it's still fun. And like Cora said, if it's not fun, they're going to fix it.
Yeah, and that was something Iksar touched on in his post too, the idea of actual or perceived fairness. And I think, again, this plays into something that we were talking about earlier with Constructed is, it's not necessarily whether the numbers all add up and things are balanced. Like if it doesn't feel good, if it's not fun, if you feel that you are being punished for playing as a solo player, that's something that they are willing to take into account when looking at how the mode works and how the game works. So, again, like give them your feedback in a fair and constructed way, and just, like be adults, be people, and remember that the ones on the other side are people too.
Yeah. It's, we've had some really great communication, but also there have been some things that people have gotten worked up about. And when the communication is positive, they take it and they listen. And when the communication is negative, even if there's some element of truth in it, it's hard for them to find it beyond the profanity and vulgarity and whatever you want to call it. Feedback's okay, but it's not personal. They're trying to make a game that we love, and the developers could always go into any other software field where if you make Quicken for a living, no one tweets you like, I can't believe you made it so hard to balance my checkbook. Nerf checks. What's going on? Like, it's just, you just make a program and then it works. Then you go home at 5 o'clock and nobody tweets at you saying to fix your Quicken.
You just described why I have stuck with contract and freelance work outside of podcasting, because it is the complete opposite and kind of nice in its own way. It's like, oh, they want me to do this thing, and I'm going to do this thing, and then that'll be the end of this transaction, and I don't need to hear about on Twitter that I didn't pronounce a fictional character's name the right way. It's nice. It's nice sometimes. Are you saying that you should go to Quicken if video game communities are too hostile? Where are you going with this hat?
It's like, if you make unglamorous software, nobody yells at you while you're not working about it. It's like, maybe if you run the corporate Microsoft account, people might tweet at you about Windows, but if your bio says Microsoft developer, no one's going to at you about your webcam drivers causing problems.
I have definitely added Logitech for web, but you know what? I didn't go and hunt down Logitech driver developers. So you know what?
You didn't go find Bobby Logitech, founder of Logitech. Like it's
and you know why? Because they don't talk to us in the first place. And so you bring up, this all comes back around to the developers are putting themselves out there by communicating with us in the first place. Let's not punish them by being jerks.
Iksar, just to bring it back to Hearthstone, Iksar also mentioned that the majority of solo players won't know or care that they're playing against group players. And I think this obviously is pointing to, they're not going to give us any kind of indicator, which Garrett, coming from Heroes of the Storm specifically, I know like when you get group players there, they have those little party icons. And I'm interested to know your thoughts on that. They removed that from the game
because they didn't want us knowing if we're against the pre-made. But you can tell. You can tell.
Because like that was my question, is because I know, again, Dead by Daylight has a similar thing, or the community is asking Dead by Daylight to implement something like that because people want to know when they're playing against a stack or like teams. And do you think, like, I personally like that information, and I think if you're a dev, you shouldn't want to hide that if your game is balanced and fair and fun, you know, like
truest form of a double-edged sword, in like its purest form. Because in a perfect world, yes, it's good to have that information so that if you would then go and talk to someone like Iksar and say, I don't like getting matched against 4 stacks. I was just matched against a 4 stack. I know it for a fact because of the UI decision you've made in the game.
Yep.
And I got blocked out of drafting multiple minion types, not tribes. However, you get a placebo effect. You could just get unlucky. Bob could have just screwed you because Bob screws you sometimes. Yeah. Like you could have just had a poor draft that had nothing to do with the 4 stack you just ran up against. They weren't actually dominating the draft pool. You just straight up got unlucky, and you have no true way of knowing that. I mean, maybe you ran into all 4 of them late game and you know that they actually were cornering the draft pool with the way that you were trying to build, and they even cornered the thing you tried to transition out of. So on and so forth. But the truth is, you are going to get a certain percentage of false positives of placebo influenced negative feedback. And so it is. I don't know. It's a true double-edged sword in my mind. I personally err on the side of something should be done. Where I would imagine Iksar's comments is going to get blowback is in an area where he says, I think that the overwhelming majority of solo players will not know or care if they are playing against group players.
It's like, they won't maybe not know, but they would care, I would think.
Yeah. Like we've been covering Hearthstone since the beginning. We've seen a lot of different community outreach styles and the feedback that follows. Sure, I'm certain because of how many people play Hearthstone, the majority of the overall player base probably wouldn't know or care. I think a vocal minority on Reddit, forums, etc. will know, will care, and will make that abundantly clear through comments. So that's like where I go, ooh, if I were you, I would have used different words there because I could see that, getting some pushback there because I think something should be done because the way I assume the system works is it doesn't take into account that you're a 4 stack at all. And it seems to be confirmed by Iksar's comments here that the system doesn't take any consideration whatsoever. No. And I just think that's wrong. It's me, not a game designer, with an opinion. Congratulations. I should start a podcast. But
they're open to bringing things like that into the matchmaking though. Like that's one of many solutions that he offers in his post. They're talking about how they need more data to make an informed decision. And I think that that's the right way to go about it is let us play, get the data, make a decision instead of like trying a whole bunch of stuff that never really works or never really feels right. Just get information and then go. Because again, like, and we've talked about this before is when they're going to remove this beta tag, they're still changing things. They're still testing things. And one more big change that we haven't even touched on yet is the fact that they're going to reset our MMRs soon in 18.4. So after that, they're then also going to reset every major Battlegrounds patch. And as far as we know or understand, major Battlegrounds patches are going to be sometime shortly after an expansion. So these are the major patches that Iksar told us about months ago, when he was talking about just pacing of updating Battlegrounds in general. So we're getting MMR resets. It's happening. It's coming in soon-ish, 18.4, whenever that is. We are in 18.2 right now. So thoughts on Battleground resets, thoughts on MMR resets.
Well, he also goes into detail saying that when it happens, we're going to go to 0, not 4,000, which is where we started.
Yeah.
When the Battlegrounds beta first hit, or if you're getting into it for the first time right now. And
well, kinda. Because there are 2 ratings. This is the tricky
they're
part.
going to a 2 rating system. I'm trying not to be too bummed about that, but I'm pretty bummed about that.
I mean, and this is like what they did with ladder, with constructed ladder. It's basically the same thing where they're going to have some kind of system where you make progression during the Battlegrounds season, which I guess is now going to be effectively per Battlegrounds expansion, because they kind of do the Battlegrounds expansion equivalents.
Oh, does he say that in here?
2 months. There's going to be a matchmaking rating, which is the MMR that you use to match you with, and then the visual rating, which is the rating you see on your account. And said it's very similar to how the star ratings reset system works in constructed Hearthstone. They said they feel like that system is relatively successful because hardcore users zoom through the system pretty quickly, but less hardcore users get to play in a mostly progression-based system. So on reset, your visual rating goes to 0, but your MMR stays the same. That rating you've worked on, it's still used to match you with opponents, but your visual rating, which is like your stars and your rank and all that, that's what changes over time. And then after however many games you have to play based on how the system works, they will roughly end up with your MMR and your visual rating aligning. So the really high ranked players will be Battlegrounds Legends, and then there will be like, I don't know if they'll actually have like cosmetic terms like Battlegrounds Diamond, Battlegrounds Platinum, whatever.
Yeah,
but it looks like
they didn't touch on that at all, really. They just said that you'll have some sort of visual rating, but they didn't say what that was going to actually look like or if we'd be dealing with a star system. But they did say that you go from take about 30 to 60 lobbies in order for you to go from 0. So from your reset rank back up to kind of where you were. So again, very similar to how constructed Hearthstone works. And then you will pretty much stay there unless you magically get better.
I would say, I think it's safe to infer that we're still going to be dealing with a number and not bronze through diamond, because if he says he says your quote, your visual rating will go to 0, not your visual rating will go to bronze.
Right. Yeah. Which could just be that they haven't decided. Could just be that they haven't decided how to show it to us, or if they want it to match constructed Hearthstone. Again, beta, and also this is coming in the next patch, and we don't actually know when that's going to be, but maybe they haven't decided yet. Maybe they're going to do a season where we get numbers, and then another season where we get stars, and another season where we get, I don't know, flowers and rainbows.
Do you think it'll be
unicorns? Unicorns.
Will be probably with a big update to Battlegrounds then, if the whole idea is to sync this up with major Battlegrounds updates. So I guess up until now we could have assumed that had we had this rating reset, it would have resetted with dragons, and then we would have built, and then it would have reset at pirates, and then we would be building until now.
So then I think we can also infer that 18.4 is going to be our next official major Battlegrounds patch. And so we haven't had our major patch yet, and that will be some big something coming again with 18.4, whenever that is. But, soon-ish, within the next month or so, I would guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't put this 18.2 update on par with Pirates or Dragons, but it is a pretty damn big update for Battlegrounds.
Well, I mean, it's 3 heroes and a few minion changes, right? Which
I guess
have talked about that being minor before.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I was saying. I wouldn't, but custom lobbies.
Custom lobbies
in like the greater pantheon of updates we've gotten to Hearthstone and features we've gotten to Hearthstone. Custom lobbies is like unheard of. This is Titanic.
Yeah.
Like we still can't play our friends with our arena decks. Like
it's huge, but it's not. It's structural and not content based. And so like this is a large patch, but it's not a content patch. It's a how you play as opposed to the things that you play with. Like in terms of actual Battlegrounds balance, 18.0.2 was bigger than this because no more Megasaur, no more Cannon. That was enough by itself. And they also changed all of beasts. But in terms of structural and how we can play, then yes, 100%, this is big. But yeah, I like your theory, Josh. I assume this will be... it seems like the mid-set patch is Battlegrounds, that they basically have BGs and constructed at exactly opposite cadences. So that when you get bored of one, you get to switch the other right in the middle. I don't know how they're going to fit in new game mode, however they're going to do that. into this schedule, but we don't know what it is yet. So I guess it remains to be seen.
We don't.
I haven't gotten as burnt out on Battlegrounds. Like I haven't really. There's been maybe 2 points where I've been like totally burnt out, and it was right before the Megasaur change. I was just like so done with Murlocs, and then 1 point before that, and I can't really put my finger on what it was, but it's
Floating Watch Demons.
Ooh, probably, yeah. Even though I was doing it constantly right alongside everybody else, but yeah, I think it's the nature of a auto battler. At the end of the day, it is in and of itself so random that even when the meta stays the same, there's still a decent amount of variance to kind of keep things interesting. But it's good. I mean, a lot of other card games, there's a sense of like you have your main format, right? Like in Magic, like I only really ever played limited and mostly sealed. And even within limited, I could have gone from sealed to draft and so on. Hearthstone has never really had that. We've had our arena diehards and we've had our constructed diehards, and that's basically it. And this current cadence, as you mentioned, Had, I think is perfect. You bring up a great point. It's really good. If you're vaguely interested in both Battlegrounds and Standard, it's fantastic. It's perfect. They've absolutely timed it out really well. But I think it's fun.
You never really feel torn, right?
Yeah. I've never had the feeling in Hearthstone.
I feel torn. I have a day job and I want to play both modes.
That
Right?
is fair. That is fair. This is the closest I've ever come to feeling like there's too many ways to play Hearthstone. I still don't think I truly feel there's too many ways to play Hearthstone. I think it might be cool to feel like there's too many ways to play Hearthstone, like concrete, like a fact. Like there's just too much. I can't interface with it all. Because that's how I feel in World of Warcraft, and that's fine. I accept that, and I just, I make my own goals in that game. And I think that's an absolutely cool and would be a rad place for Hearthstone to be for a change. So bring on the new game mode. I want to see what it is.